little jump for joy in Downing Street, no question. In fact, a double jump for joy. Farage not on the campaign trail for the next. Well, he will be a bit, it sounds like, but not effectively as a candidate. But secondly, effectively saying, I'm done with British politics. My future is in America. That is fantastic. Richard Tice, I don't think, is a particularly powerful leader for reform. Reform is getting votes because of disillusion for right-wing voters with the Tories. But Downing Street will be breathing a big sigh of relief.
We're no experts on the power of music to pull and tug at emotions, but they are very different sounding things, Ed Vaizey. One is, the world is dangerous, you've got to trust us because you're probably about to die. And the other is, stand up, get on your feet, there's a party happening and you want to join Keir Starmer to achieve change.
Well, I mean, I'm just reacting as a punter now, and I have to say, Kezia, please call Labour HQ urgently, because that music is so irritating. It's the music that you say on the train. Do you mind turning that down? The messages are obviously very clear. Keir Starmer's message, which I think Andrew Neil was commenting on earlier, time for a change, the most powerful message in democratic politics. 14 years of Tories, it writes itself. Please, can we just try the other guy? The Tories' message, it's a dangerous world, will keep you secure. It's a risky message for the Tories because the public might say, yes, it is a dangerous world, but it's not you, chump, who's going to keep us secure after the last 14 years, particularly the last 3.5 years or so. There's always a danger with a negative, reminding people about the pandemic, reminding people about the invasion of Ukraine. And also people are worried about day-to-day things, cost of living, NHS waiting lists. They want to hear a message about that. They want to hear a positive message from the Tories about that. So I found fault in both, but I'm afraid that Labour music did it for me. I wouldn't listen to them.
Kezia, before we talk about the substantive things, just on what did you make of those two things? Tonally, they couldn't have been any more different.
Well, that's right. And, I might not love the music behind Labour's video message, but I understand its purpose, which is to articulate a sense of urgency. Like, this is a moment, this is your chance. It is a change election stig, and this is your opportunity to deliver that. So I think the music's a clear choice. I don't think it's a sort of last minute panic. It's there deliberately.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right. Now, let's talk about the decision to go now. Danny Finkelstein has a column today, Ed, which is basically, I think you can summarise it as, there's no good date. This is the least worst date.
Yeah.
And actually, the problem for Rishi Sunak is it's the least worst date, probably because there are more problems coming down the line than there are solutions, and therefore do it now, because ultimately the summer is not going to bring better news.
Yeah, I heard you commenting on it earlier on the show and saying, is there some really bad economic news around the corner, which doesn't fill me with much joy. And I think Danny, in his column, makes a very clear case for, in fact, he says very clearly he thinks Sunak has probably made the right choice. And one is just stop waiting. The more you wait, the more you're clinging on, and people are just waiting for the execution date rather than the election date. So you might as well have your element of surprise. This point, which I don't think is being made enough, perhaps, about spiking the guns of reform. Farage now has to make up his mind in the next 24 hours. Is he going to run? Reform is pretty chaotic at the best of times, but you've cut them off from 3 or 4 months of organising against you and taking away Tory votes. It's clear from the campaign video that the kind of inflation market is kind of, the Tories are going to say for the next 6 weeks, the economy is fixed. Inflation's 2%, job done.
Which implies, of course, that it will get worse in
exactly
3 months' time.
So, and you can't wait for the boats to start crossing in a hot July, August with a calm English Channel. You kind of you sweep away the uncertainties of, will interest rates come down fast enough? Will you botch the Rwanda flights? Will the boats keep coming? Will there just be a series of more bad news, either on the economy or other things like public services? Jeremy Hunt's just put out a tweet about £60 billion investment in the national grid, which doesn't sound particularly sexy, but it's, he's put in 55,000 jobs. So there's clearly quite a few announcements being lined up to show a kind of positive momentum going forward. So I think the Tories, weirdly, it doesn't feel like a last minute decision now. It feels like it's something they've been preparing for a few weeks and are ready to go and have this advantage of surprise.
And maybe the right decision, Kezia, for all the reasons that Ed was saying. I mean, it's not necessarily great, but maybe this was the best he could do.
I agree with that. If you were a management consultant, you were getting your spreadsheet out and doing a SWOT analysis of all the different options ahead of you, I think you would arrive at this point where you realise that everything that you've done in the 2 years he's been in office near enough, or even in the last month where there's been a relative number of good news stories from the Prime Minister, none of it has shifted the dial in the direction the Tories would want it to. So all you can do now is hope to have that element of surprise on Labour. Labour were election ready in May. A lot of people in the Labour Party were convinced they'd go to the country after the local elections, and staff are on watch for that eventuality. We've just seen in the past few days Labour relax the rules about letting their party staff go on holiday. That suggests that they had really thought that the election was going to be in the autumn now. So there is an element of surprise there, and this will stop Labour running the campaign that they perhaps wanted to deliver. We'll have to do it really on fast forward now, and explain to the country not just that Keir Starmer is better than the current guy, but exactly what he's going to do with that power.
We are going to hear apparently from Keir Starmer. He's going to be speaking around about 9:15, so we may break away into that. But let's keep going for the moment. Kezia, let's talk about the risks that there may be for Labour. You know, you would look at the polls, and we spoke to Pat McFadden, and he said, you know, we can't be complacent. So that's one of the risks. I think there's two risks, but you might see there are more. One risk is that everyone thinks it's a done deal and they don't bother voting, and therefore Labour don't perhaps get the majority that they wanted to get. The other, of course, is that they want to be they want change, but they don't want too much change. They have to be a bit boring about it. What do you think the risks are for Labour?
So I think the biggest risk is momentum. So with Labour being 25 points ahead in the poll, arguably the only way is down now, and that's what you would expect to happen in a short campaign, to squeeze on those numbers. Now Labour will have planned to have a few, flag post moments in the ground between now and an election that would have taken place in late October or early November. Big moments to reveal a manifesto, let that breathe a little, let the public digest that. Big policy announcements, and a little bit more about Keir Starmer, the man, and they would all be signposted at key moments and be allowed to breathe and allow the kind of momentum to continue through that. That's all going to have to happen now very, very quickly. And there'll be an awful lot more pressure in a short period of time for Keir Starmer to show exactly what he's going to do with majority. And the questions will flow from that. What's the difference between a majority of 50 and a majority of 200 to the ambition and the policy platform that Labour have for the country? There's a lot in that. And having to do that in every corner of the country over a 6-week period really puts the whole thing under incredible spotlight.
Just a quick update. Nigel Farage has just issued a statement. So listen to what you think about this. I've thought long and hard as to whether I should stand in the upcoming general election. He's never succeeded as an MP, of course. Keep that in mind as we have this conversation. As honorary president of Reform UK, I'm fully supportive of Richard Tice's leadership and urge voters to put their trust in him and Lee Anderson. I will do my bit to help in the campaign, but it's not the right time for me to go any further than that. Important though the general election is, the contest in the United States of America on November the 5th has huge global significance. A strong America as a close ally is vital for our peace and security. I intend to help with the grassroots campaign in the USA in any way that I can. The choice between Labour and the Conservatives is uninspiring, and only Reform have the radical agenda that is needed to end decline in this country. Nigel Farage not standing as MP. He's chosen to go off and support Donald Trump instead.
Ed Vaizey, what do you make of that?
Little jump for joy in Downing Street, no question. In fact, a double jump for joy. Farage not on the campaign trail for the next. Well, he will be a bit, it sounds like, but not effectively as a candidate. But secondly, effectively saying, I'm done with British politics. My future is in America. That is fantastic. Richard Tice, I don't think, is a particularly powerful leader for Reform. Reform is getting votes because of disillusion for right-wing voters with the Tories. But Downing Street will be breathing a big sigh of relief.
Kezia?
Undoubtedly good news for Rishi Sunak. I don't think it's particularly bad news for Labour, but it will put a little bit of the spring in the step of the Prime Minister this morning.